Wipe every tear from their eyes. There'll be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Hi, I'm Dawn Harris, and this is our weekly pause. Today I'm talking with Marcus Noles, and we'll be talking about how to care for your pet after you've passed away. So let's go ahead and get started. Hi, Marcus.
Hey,
Thanks for
Dawn.
joining us today.
Yes, ma'am. I'm glad to be here.
Appreciate it. So tell
Sure.
us a little bit about yourself.
So, of course, my name's Marcus Noles. I'm a licensed attorney here in Tennessee. I practice here in Benton County, Camden, at Whitworth Law Firm. I'm married to Susan Knowles, and we have one son, Sawyer, and we live here in the middle of town. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're close by. I went to undergraduate school at the University of Memphis, and actually engineering school. Then I kind of switched gears and went into the legal profession and went to law school at Southern Illinois University School of Law. And I graduated there in 2011 and set for the bar in the spring of 2012 and have been practicing ever since. Um, that's kind of the spill on me, I guess.
Well, thank you so much. We're
I
so
do have two
appreciative.
pets as well.
What do you have?
Natchez is a dog. He is a golden doodle, and he's wide open. So,
Mm-hmm.
and we have one cat as well. Susan does, and that we actually have 25 chickens too right now from the 4-H chick chain that we Sawyer's raising up. So we've got some pets ourselves.
That's wonderful. Yeah, so this applies to you as well then, if something were to happen to you, hopefully,
Sure.
nothing soon, of course. Um, but we all want to know what to do if something were to happen to us, how to make sure our pets are cared for. So that's what prompted me to, kind of delve into this topic because obviously Revelation Gardens, we care for 54 rescues, and if something were to happen to me, I'm always concerned that I have things lined up so that they will be cared for. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Um, but I know that many pet owners consider pets family members. But from a legal standpoint, do pets have the same considerations after a person dies that a family member does?
Well, no. So even though a lot of people have the same feelings for their pets, are sometimes stronger than they do for their family members, they are not considered to be a person or have the rights of people in the state of Tennessee. They're considered to be chattel, which is just personal property, very similar to furniture or livestock. They're just personal property. So there are a lot of things you can't do whenever you start talking about willing stuff to pets or providing for them after your death, and um, those those are considerations that everybody must make if they want to leave money or even a home for their pets. So there's various ways we can do that. Uh, the Stop me if you need to at any time. But these uh, some of these items are a will, for instance. So in your will, you cannot actually leave money or a home to a pet. But what you can do is you can establish a trust, a pet trust in your will. And that's called a testamentary trust.
And
And
that's the best way to care for a pet after you passed?
it is
Okay.
that is the safest and most responsible way to do it. Of
Okay.
course, you could give money if you've got a friend or someone that you know is going to care for your pet. You can give them your pet and give them money in the hopes that they care for your pet. But without a trust, you cannot ensure that they will.
Well, tell me a little bit more. I've heard of trusts and I've heard
Mhm.
of wills. I've heard of living trusts. I know that there's several things, but I'm not really that clear, and perhaps some other folks aren't as clear on what those are as well.
Yeah,
Maybe you could tell us
sure.
a little bit more about that.
So, a a will, of course, is a document that tells what happens to all your stuff when you die. Now, there are different wills that are recognized in the state of Tennessee. If you come to our office and you wanted a will, we'd draft the documents, you'd sign it in front of two witnesses, it'd be notarized, and those are the requirements for a typed will in the state of Tennessee. Now, in general, people at home, if they're sitting there thinking, "Oh my goodness, I can't get to an attorney right now," or they can sit down with a piece of paper and handwrite their will and date it and sign it. Now, it all has to be in their own handwriting, so you can't get on your computer and type it up and then sign it.
See, that's what I did.
Yeah,
I
see
did it
that?
on the computer and I signed it, but so that's not valid.
No, no. So
See, that's good to know.
that's not a valid holographic will. And holographic, it just means it's in your own handwriting, dated and signed.
Okay.
No, and it's not required to be witnessed. Now, if it is contested, a handwriting expert would have to confirm that's your handwriting, or other proof would have to
Hmm.
show that you really wrote it, if it was ever contested. But it is, assuming it's in your handwriting, it's a valid way to devise your property. Now, I do recommend that everybody go speak with an attorney about their estate planning, because there are other issues that must be taken into consideration besides uh, what we just think about while we're sitting there. So some of those, when we're talking about pets, are you can't leave money to your pet. So if I hand wrote my will and I said I want to leave um, Natchez, my dog, $1,000 for dog food. Well, you can't do that. He's not a person. He's a he's a piece of property in Tennessee.
Do you ever foresee that changing? Is there a way we can like work towards changing legislation so that a pet could, but it still would need somebody to
No.
administer it
Yeah.
because they can't obviously go to the bank and
Yeah. They can't contract or even go purchase stuff.
yeah.
So I don't see it ever changing. And um, it even though uh, you know we depend on our animals, and for instance, my wife, our cat, if it escapes, oh, she's heartbroken.
Of course.
And the cat might just be playing in the yard, but she's still, so we all have those tied emotions with our animals. And um, so we want them to be humans, or be taken care of like humans, but uh, there's no way they're ever going to be able to contract for their care or go to the store and buy their food, or feed themselves. In the wild they can, but I mean, um, in a domestic situation they're not going to be able to. So you'll always have to have a person or an organization such as what you have here, or a group of people that are going to care for that and manage those funds for the benefit of the animals.
Okay, so we've learned that you need to have either a handwritten will or visit an attorney, visit you, to make sure that you have a will. But what about a trust? You mentioned a trust, so tell us about a
Yeah.
trust.
So trust can be set up at any time. You can do a trust during your lifetime, or you can do it at death, which is a testamentary trust. So a trust becomes real, or enacted whenever it's funded. So the way a testamentary trust is, when you die, your will funds that trust, and it establishes a trustee, and that trustee has fiduciary duties, or requirements by law of how to manage that. And you, as the settler, or as the person creating the trust, get to dictate the terms of how that money is used. So, for instance, let's say you establish a trust and you said, when I die, I want $5,000 to go to my cats. And I want my trustee to make sure they're fed, take them to the vet. You can put all that stuff in your trust. And the trustee then has a legal obligation to do that. And those uh, those trusts are the only real mechanism at death to enforce that gift.
So if it's not, how's their accountability? So if that person doesn't do what they're supposed to be doing, how does that, um, where's the accountability,
Yeah.
or is there?
There's no accountability to the court or to any party now. What does happen is they have duties obligated by statute, fiduciary duties, and you can also impose duties on them through the trust. So you could have your attorney draft a trust that says um, the board of directors for Revolution Gardens has the right to an accounting every year of where the funds are spent. But if you don't do that, then it's somewhat of an honor system that this person is following the law and doing what they're supposed to with the funds.
Got it. Okay. So that's for an individual, but somebody like in my situation that
Sure.
is founded in and is running a nonprofit for animals for rescues. Is there any differences for somebody in that situation?
Well, so in your situation, um, the nonprofit will never die until it's dissolved. So you don't have to worry about the nonprofit itself. But when you die, if you want to donate money to the nonprofit, well, you would have to specifically put that in your will.
Got it.
And if you wanted to direct where those funds went within the nonprofit, you could reach an agreement with the nonprofit before you died. So, for instance, if you wanted to donate money at death to the nonprofit for the purpose of purchasing a vehicle to haul the animals, uh, you could agree with the nonprofit. Look, I'm going to give you $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever it might be uh, for this purpose, and y'all could all sign an agreement to that effect, and you've committed yourself through your will to donate those funds, and the nonprofit has committed theirself to spend them how you're asking.
Now, this might be a little off topic, but so if um, the nonprofit doesn't have somebody to care for the animals, um, and I've passed away, do, does the nonprofit just dissolve because they can't care for the animal? I don't,
Well,
I haven't really thought that through, and you're starting me thinking about some of these things I hadn't thought about.
yeah.
So,
So the nonprofit itself was organized with a board of directors, I'm sure, and I
yes,
of course haven't looked at any of your bylaws or
sure.
charter, but um, assuming the purpose of that was to care for these animals that need assistance,
Hmm.
then if if the nonprofit isn't doing that, they're not fulfilling their purpose, and they could lose their nonprofit status, could be dissolved. So there's various things that could happen, but
But
to answer
again,
your question is I guess while you're alive and here you put people in place
right,
that you trust
yeah,
and feel that they're going to do what's right when you're gone. It's the same as whenever you appoint a trustee through your will or an executor. Okay, so I kind of skipped over this, but if you don't have a trust in your will, it's an executor who administers your estate,
hmm,
and their job is to gather your assets, protect them, pay any just creditors, and then divide those assets however you direct it. If you have a trust within that will, you have an executor who probates that will, and the trustee of the trust is who manages those funds after the estate is closed to ensure it
okay, that
fulfills the
makes a lot of
purpose.
sense. So, as a representative of the nonprofit, but as well as an individual, if we want to make sure that our pets are cared for, we need to select somebody that we trust to be the executor. Would that be
Uh,
the right?
yes, during the term of the will, and if you establish a trust within the will, the trustee and the executor could be the same person if you wanted them to, or not. That would be your choice.
Right.
But both of those people would need to be someone you trusted to carry out what you want. Now, I got off topic a little. You were asking how do you ensure, like in your situation personally, that uh, when you die that this continues.
Hmm.
And there's there's no way to ensure that forever, but you can during your lifetime put in place the things that would help, such as a will with a trust, or donate funds to them. And I'm sure your listeners, if they wanted to donate funds to your organization, they'd be used wonderfully. And that's what you hope for. You hope that the community helps and contributes, and they continue to do that even after you're gone. And then whenever they do that, the good things you're doing can continue.
Right, right.
But if they stop, and your board of directors is not continuing to care for the animals, well, the people are going to quit giving money to the organization, and yes, it's going to end up dissolving,
Sure.
because people aren't going to leave donations to you without the proof of efforts. And
Okay, so you've learned a lot today. You talked about the trusts and the wills. Did you explain about a living trust and a living will?
okay,
It seems like there's a
yeah.
lot of layers, and I'm still not clear on
Well,
those.
so a living will just directs for your person. Do you want life support? Do you want to donate your organs?
Okay,
It's not a direction really as to pets.
okay,
It's your personal preference on what kind of care you want. Now, a living trust is a trust that you establish during your lifetime, and it can be for various purposes. But you could establish a trust at any time and fund it, and then that trust controls. So, for instance, if you had $100,000 and you wanted to donate it in a certain way, or you wanted to place it into trust for the benefit of your animals, you would find a trustee, you would draft a trust, and that money would go to the trustee for the benefit of the animals, and the trust would lay out what you wanted the trustee to do for the animals. It can be for their complete care. It could be for the purchase of a home for the animals to stay at. It can be for spading and neutering. I mean, the the trust can serve endless purposes,
right.
but the only difference between a testamentary and a living trust is you're alive when you make
I
one,
see.
and one's funded
Okay,
at death.
okay,
So,
okay. Um, my mind is reeling, trying to think of all of the things that I should probably do
sure.
to make sure that the rescues of Revelation Gardens are taken care of. And I'm also trying to think of an individual or a family who wants to care for their pets. Is there anything I'm not thinking of that folks should know about in order to make sure their pets are cared for after they've passed away?
Yes, have a plan in place.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know, it's important to have some form of plan. Because we never know.
I know.
We're not guaranteed another day. So, you know, it's always nice to say, hey, look, if something happens to me, will you come get my pets? I mean, even if they go somewhere else in your will, even if somebody else is going to care for them until their death, you still need someone to come immediately and get the pets and take care of them, to feed them, to water them, to handle those immediate concerns. And that is what I mean by have a plan in place. Uh, those and those friends and our family members, you know, they're who you need to come right then, because your estate is not going to be finished in the next day. It's not going to be open the next day. Your trust is not going, if you set it up through your will, is not going to be in place the next day. So you've got a period of time where these animals need someone. And that's what I mean by the plan.
okay.
And in your situation, and other people who might be listening that have a nonprofit that own animals, well, the nonprofit is actually the owner of the animals, and they have those legal duties to take care of the animals. So your board of directors should continue to provide care for all the animals of the nonprofit. In general, what I was referring to with get somebody to come feed them, I was kind of referring to personal pets. In your situation, your board should do that, and I'm sure they do. But you know, y'all still need a plan in place.
Absolutely.
Even
Yes.
even though there's more than just you involved with this, you still got to have a plan because you have duties and other people have duties, and somebody's got to step up and fill yours.
Yep. Okay. Great information. So not talking about the nonprofit, but an individual or, a husband and wife, family members. What happens if they become incapacitated? They're still alive, but they're not able to, do care for
Sure.
their pets. And what would happen in that situation? Do they need something
Well,
in place to help
so
direct that?
So yes, there are some things that can be put in place in that situation. Uh, One of those would be a power of attorney,
Okay.
and and you would actually need a durable power of attorney in that situation. And the durable part just means it survives through incapacity. So if you've got a power of attorney in place, they can pay your bills, they can buy dog food, they can do those kinds of things for you. But if you don't have that in place, you would have to have a conservatorship established through the court system, and the court would appoint a conservator to handle your legal and financial obligations. Now, uh, all of that is stuff that can happen and would happen, but you still need that plan in place because in the event of that incapacity, um, at least the conservatorship through the legal arena is not something that happens overnight. And you've got to feed and water these animals every day. So you've got to have that plan in place.
So somebody to step in immediately, and then
Sure.
the legal stipulations of what happens with um, your estate if you've passed, and then if you're still living, who would care for, taking care of the bills and buying the
Sure.
food and all that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so you've mentioned several times about, having a plan and then choosing somebody um, that you trust, essentially. Do you
Sure.
have any suggestions on how to choose somebody that administers your will and trust?
Well, that varies for every person.
Sure.
Of course, in my situation, it would be my spouse, because she's there, she's with the family, she is the person that I trust and would trust to handle all that. And in many situations, that's the case, but in other ones, uh, where there is no spouse or their spouse has died, it could be a friend or a family member. It just needs to be someone you trust and that you're comfortable and believe they're going to take care of your animals and support them. And even if you do have that spouse at home, y'all still need to have a plan because we never know what might happen if you get in a car wreck or anything that happens and both of you are gone are incapacitated. Uh, somebody's got to step in then because your spouse isn't there with you. So
Yeah.
that's part of the planning,
Yeah.
and nobody really likes to do that. I mean,
I
that's
know
the
it's weird
easiest
to
thing
think
to
of those
to to
things.
push off and say, I'll do that tomorrow. But you don't know what's going to happen today, so pushing it off tomorrow is not the best plan.
Yeah, I remember I was starting to write up some of this stuff, and you've shared with me that it's not going to be valid because it's not my own handwriting. But I started to go through those things with my mom and my husband, and they didn't want to talk about it.
Sure.
It's a really hard subject to
Yes.
talk about,
Yes, it is.
but it's so important. I mean, if something were to happen and nothing was in place, um, that would be bad news, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you don't have a will in place or a trust, your estate passes by statute, and um, in that situation, you don't know if the person who's going to inherit from your estate is going to provide anything for your animals or get rid of them. You can't insure anything that way. Um, so, so it is important. If you die without a will, your money's still going to be inherited by someone unless you have just no family, and then it would eschew to the state. But uh, in most situations, someone would get it, but you don't know if that someone's going to do what you want them to unless you have the will.
So if somebody did not have family, like myself, I don't have children and I don't
Sure.
have brothers and sisters. I do have family though, but if I did not, um, my whatever things that I owned would go to the state, and if I had animals, they would not be cared for because I didn't have a plan.
So
So,
currently in Tennessee, if you're married with no children, then your spouse would inherit at your death. If you're not married and you have no children, then it would go to your parents. If your parents are deceased, it would go to your siblings. If you don't have any siblings, it would go up to your parents and to your aunt and uncles, and then it would go down to cousins. So I mean, they do try for those funds not to go to the state if you have family, but sometimes you're that last branch
yeah.
on a family tree, and in that situation, yes, the funds would eventually go to the state and not to your animals. So
Just the way you said that, the last branch on the family tree, that's really striking. I mean, that really, if you think about that, that's um, wow.
yeah,
Just reminds me, you know, we do not have any guarantees, and it could be the end.
sure.
Don't want to get too uh, dark in our
Oh yeah,
conversation here, but this has been very informative. And so, if people want to put a will in place or to talk with you more about the things that they should be doing to make sure that their pets are cared for, how do they contact you?
okay. So I practice at Whitworth Law Firm here in Camden, and our address is 116 East Main Street. We're right on the Court Square, and our phone number is 731-584-6013. My law partner's John Whitworth, and we both do estate planning, and we're happy to meet with anybody and talk through their concerns and issues and develop some estate plans for them. So,
Wonderful. So, if you need that number again, it's 731 584 6013. And this is Marcus Noles talking with us today about how to care for our pet after we've passed away. So, a couple of things I wanted to mention that came up when he was talking. If you're in a car accident and you're incapacitated, cannot communicate that you have pets at home, I actually developed a product that's called Pet Hope. You can see it here at Revelation Gardens Vintage Shop. Essentially, it's like a dog tag. You can either wear it on your person as a dog tag or on your keychain. And on it, it says, in case of emergency, contact, and it has a number that they text the EMS personnel. And then we keep all of your emergency information on file and then text them that information. So it's a dog tag plus it's a lifetime service um, to make sure that your pets are cared for. And I came up with this after I worked at West Tennessee Healthcare, and a gal was in a coma, and the first thing she said when she came out of a coma was, "I have 3 cats at home." So it's a really important product to make sure that pets are cared for if you've been in an accident and can't communicate that you have pets at home.
that's an excellent idea, excellent product.
Yeah, it's right over there. I forgot to bring
That's
it to show on the
good.
video, but it's right here at the vintage shop, so you can stop in and see that. One other thing is Revelation Gardens was actually founded to provide care for pets whose owners have passed away. So if that's something that you're interested in, putting us in your will, your trust, that sort of thing, let me know. That's again why we were founded, um, so we can talk about the future care of your pet if that's something you'd like. I'm so appreciative of you coming today and sharing this really important information. It's things that we don't often think about, and when we do, we don't really want to think about it.
Sure.
So,
Yes, and thank you for having me. And you're exactly right. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff. I mean, it's not a pleasant conversation. It's not something that we really like to think about, but we all need to. And uh, it's important to do that before it's too late. I mean, so just having a plan in place is invaluable when you need it. So
That's
it's
I think the main thing I've gotten from this conversation. I've got a lot of valuable information, but that right there, I think, is the thing that struck me the most is to have a plan.
yeah,
And my plan is insufficient at this time.
yeah.
So I'm definitely going to be meeting with you.
Great. Well, Dawn, thank you. Thank you for having me. Y'all are doing great work here, and if y'all haven't come to her shop, you need to check it out. It's awesome in here. Um, and if you need to donate to somebody, give her a call.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
So,
All right, well, that's it for our podcast this week. A couple of announcements. If you have a pet related question, you can email us at revelation.gardens@gmail.com. We also have a fundraiser coming up this summer. It's actually the third Friday of each month, June through October. The first one is June 18th, and we're going to have Huntington Fish Shack. That's going to be our food truck. Sheila Pearson is going to be presenting Creative Flow. That's at 5 p.m. And then we're going to have live music with Taylor Lynn. She's a coal miner's granddaughter, so that should be really great. And I've added to the lineup an after party, and it's going to be an exclusive after party, and that's going to be with the Black Eyed Susans. And then July 16th, we're going to have Mike Younger with our live music. And then following in August will be Brooke McBride. September 17th is Lady and Gents. And then we conclude in October with Michael Hendricks. It's going to be a really fun event. There's going to be vendors, speakers, food trucks, and live music, like I mentioned. It's a fundraiser for our rescues. So come on out. It's going to be free to the public, but we do ask for donations.
will that be here?
Right here.
Right here.
Yes,
Great.
right next to Camden Donuts on Main Street in Camden. And the vendor booths will be outside. Live music will be inside. Live music starts at 6. We do have a comedian at our September 17th show. That will be before our live music, so that should be really fun. So that's it for today, and I feel like I'm forgetting something. Our sponsors. I want to thank our wonderful sponsors, Camden Animal Clinic and Fox Sanitation. With their generous support, we're able to bring you this podcast each week. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. And thank you again.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.